What's up, everybody? Ryan Kostrowski here. This is Wisconsin Sports Talk, guys. We've done a lot of Bucks talk already. Obviously, the show's still pretty brand new, so we haven't talked about a whole bunch of things yet, but addressed a little Packers stuff. But it's time to really do our introductory and first-time video talking about the Milwaukee Brewers. One game away from going to the playoffs, or one game away from going to the World Series last year. If you guys remember that Game 7, it was a little bit heartbreaking, wasn't it? I'm sure most of you guys probably felt the same way. It was tough to watch. Let's go back and get it again this year. Anyways, as alluded to already, this is episode 6. We're here just to talk over the Bucks, the Brewers, and the Packers. I'm going to start bringing more people on to talk it over with me, so it's not just me up here in my soapbox discussing sports with myself for you guys to listen to. Anybody who would be interested in reaching out and talking to me about these things or coming on here, we can just do a quick Google Hangout, discuss any of these 3 teams. Let me know. I'm open to talking all 3 subjects as much as my timeline really allows me to do. If you are new to the station, I sincerely appreciate anybody who presses that red button that says subscribe. The more I get, the quicker it helps me grow this thing. I got another YouTube channel where we talk about daily fantasy sports. It takes a while to grow these. I know that, but this would be a big help. So the thumbs up, the subscribe, either one, sincerely appreciated from both you guys. Again, if you don't know who I am, I'm Green Bay born and raised, a huge sports fan. I evaluate daily fantasy sports is my living. DraftKings, give people ideas for baseball, basketball, and football. I take a little bit more of an analytical approach to sports, so that can bore some people. I get that, but sometimes people find it helpful too because I look at it in a little bit of a different way. So my question is, why is the national media ignoring the Brewers as a potential to repeat, as a team that should be a World Series favorite going into this year? Obviously, Boston was great last year, and they should not be overlooked. The Houston Astros, I expect a big bounce-back season from them. The Phillies are surging. They're the cool, sexy name. If they ink Bryce Harper here one of these days, I get it. The Cubs, the Cardinals, the Dodgers. There's lots of teams that should be discussed. But I do really feel as though Milwaukee is getting disrespected. Now, perhaps for a variety of reasons that we'll get into. There are, again, I understand why this is happening. One, it's not a sexy team name, right? It's a small market team. Milwaukee is not New York. It's not LA. It's not Chicago. It doesn't have a bunch of flashy names. We're not getting Bryce Harper. We didn't go out and trade for Paul Goldschmidt. And we're also muddled in a very competitive division with teams like the Chicago Cubs, which are a very sexy national name, and the St. Louis Cardinals, who are probably the only team short of the Yankees and maybe the Red Sox as far as legacy goes from a Major League Baseball perspective. These are both good teams, and I understand why people would want to look here. But the fact that Fangraphs has Milwaukee finishing dead last in this division makes no logical sense. And it's another thing that we can get into is way too much is made of statistics these days. Now, I evaluate statistics for a living, and I think they have their place. And I think a lot of people who can just think they can guess based on no numbers are way off base right here. There's kind of needs to be a little bit of the best of both worlds. People forget about the team chemistry. This team loves to play together. They pick one another up. They're well coached by Craig Counsell. There's a lot to like right here. And let's just face it. A lot of the national media touts, they don't really watch the game that much. I watch, on average 20, 30 hours of baseball every week, and not just Milwaukee, a lot of the teams. That's what I do for a living. So I feel it puts me in a better position to evaluate where teams will finish than the majority of people out there. Now that we've talked about this briefly, let's get into some of the details. Are they a lock to repeat as Central champions this year? No. I don't want to take it that far. I mean, it took a huge last 2 weeks, rattling off 9 wins in 10 games, an 8-game winning streak, and then having to win a playoff games to beat the Chicago Cubs. So no, they are nowhere close to a lock to repeat as Central champs because this team is good, but the Cubs are pretty good. And the Cubs might be better this year. And the Cardinals got better with the addition of one of the better hitters in baseball. The Pirates are no slouch. While I think the Pirates will probably finish 4th or 5th, they are not a bad team at all. And the Cincinnati Reds got better with some of the trades that they made in the offseason. Although, for me, this division is going to be very similar to the way it was last year. The Brewers, the Cubs, and the Cardinals will fight it out for the majority of the year. And then the Pittsburgh and Cincy won't be pathetic, but they're going to end up the bottom 2 teams again. They don't have what it takes to compete. Pittsburgh's got some decent players, but they don't have enough to compete with these other 3 teams, in my opinion. So, no, we are not a lock to repeat as champs. There is a couple of wild card spots. Very likely the Central is going to get at least one of the wild card spots with how strong this division is. And again, the Cardinals got better. The Cubs got better. And while the Brewers didn't get a ton better, there's no reason to think they got worse. And there are a couple of reasons to think they actually got better as well. All right, again, just to kind of reiterate, they're still as good as anyone out there. And the best thing that the Brewers have working for them is the fact that they still have one of, if not the best bullpens in baseball. Josh Hader is electric. You guys know it. I know it. His size, his funky delivery, his speed, the angle he brings his arm down at. He is probably the most dominant reliever, since Andrew Miller went on that run. And there's guys like Chapman that are in the conversation, Craig Kimbrell when he's at his best. Zach Britton has been pretty amazing at times, but Josh Hader is flat out nasty, just straight nasty. And I like how Counsell uses him too. You bring him in key situations. He's not just the closer. If there's a situation where you get up there and there's a couple of good lefties coming up, you can completely neutralize them. This gives the Brewers the advantage that they can shorten the game. We saw the Cardinals have issues here last year. That's not something Milwaukee's going to have to worry about. As long as guys are healthy, we saw Corey Knebel down the stretch last year, and he reminded us why he was an all-star the year before. He was amazing down the stretch last year. Jeremy Jeffress had a rough series against the Dodgers. We all saw it. He's a big part of the reason why the Brewers didn't advance. I'm sure he's not listening, because why would he be? Jeffries, you really screwed the pooch last year in the playoffs. But you know what? Palms get sweaty. Not like he had a ton of experience right there. I'm willing to give the dude a pass moving to next year. He is also a big part of the reason that Milwaukee was even there in the first place. So give the dude a pass. Rough spot for him. Going to be better this year, hopefully. All in all, though, when you have a bullpen like this and you can legitimately go into the sixth inning, if you're up 3-1, say it's pretty much lights out, you can do 2 innings of Hader, inning of Jeffries, inning of Knebel on any given day, and know that all you have to do is be winning for 5 innings and you can pretty much lock it down. That is a big asset for a team like the Brewers to have. And it's not like their other bullpen guys are slouches either. So a very deep bullpen allows you to shorten the game in the National League. When you want to take advantage of this, when you got a deep bench like Milwaukee does with Thames and Ben Gamble on the bench like that, and you can pinch hit for guys early and bring these guys in, playing a short game like this gives you a huge advantage over your competition. Next up, to piggyback off the fact that they have the best, if not, well, one of, if not the best bullpens in the game, they also play elite defense. So we all know Orlando Arcia took some big steps forwards towards the tail end of last year, had some big-time hits, was clutch, played a lot better, which is great because his offense in the first half of the season was as pathetic as you could possibly imagine. He looked absolutely lost at the plate. We saw him 2 years ago be a pretty good hitter. So let's just hope he does enough to stay out there on a daily basis, because when Orlando Arcia is playing the shortstop position, he's as good as it comes from a defensive perspective. Yeah, there's guys like Francisco and Lindor that you can make arguments for. Lindor is a great outfielder. Brandon Crawford's really good. I'm not saying Arcia is better than those guys, but they're just as good as one another. So you got an elite defensive shortstop, and then you move into the outfield where you have one of, if not the best defensive center fielders in the game in Lorenzo Cain. You got Christian Yelich, the former MVP, who plays the outfield, any of the 3 positions extremely well. And Ryan Braun is not a flashy, he's not, put it that way, he's not Lorenzo Cain, but he's a very good defensive outfielder with a very accurate arm. He's not the flashiest guy out there, but he does his job. He rarely makes mistakes. He hits the cutoff guy when necessary. He's extremely accurate with his throwing. There's a lot to like about the defensive part of the Brewers outfielder. Next up, one of the big key offseason acquisitions we made was signing Yasmani Grandal from the Dodgers. Now, Grandal's another guy. He had a bad series against the Brewers. So if you're thinking of him from that, you probably were not very happy with the signing. That being said, this guy brings a lot of pop. He's a very good hitter from the left side of the plate. And because he's a switch hitter and we still have Manny Pena, you can put him out there against lefties and run Grandal out against righties. But he's also notorious for being one of the best pitch framers in all of baseball, which can only help when it comes to keeping runs off the scoreboard. It should help our pitching staff this year. We also got Hernan Perez, who is an elite utility guy. This guy can play pretty much any position on the field with the exception of catcher and pitcher. And he can even go there if really needed to. And he plays all of those positions at a top level. Jesus Aguilar, who may have once been considered a defensive liability, has improved. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Aguilar is, a top-end defensive first baseman. He's not. but he's not as bad as some people would want to say that he is. He's better than that. He made most of the plays that needed to be made and made some nice ones. He's not very fleet of foot, but you know what? That's why he's playing first base and not playing center field. Next up, we got Mike Moustakas and Travis Shaw, and it's interesting to see what Milwaukee will do with them this year. Odds are, it sounds like Shaw, who played at second base last year, and Moose. I'm hearing Moustakas might play some second base. Either way, this would be the one position that we would consider a liability from a defensive end of things. And there's going to be a lot of days where you're going to see Hernan Perez out there as well. So Shaw and Moose can both play third base at a moderate level. They're not elite defensive guys or anything like that, but they're not weaknesses either. And because you're very good at all the other positions, with the exception of second, this is where the weaknesses will come from. No doubt about it. People have issues. You can't be perfect everywhere. You're going to have an area that's a weakness, and the defensive prowess at second base, I guess is the best way to put it, will be a weakness for Milwaukee throughout the year. Fortunately, we should have enough pitching, enough relief pitching, enough hitting, enough defense in other areas where we can overcome that specific weakness. All right, so this is a very good offensive lineup. And again, some of these names aren't quite as sexy as people would like them to be. And you could play around with the batting order, but we saw it last year. Lorenzo Cain at the top of the lineup with his ability to find ways to get on base is a catalyst. He brings so much to offer on top of a lineup like that. So we have an excellent leadoff hitter, a guy who gets on base, can run the bases, he's aggressive. Followed up by Christian Yelich, who is the NL MVP. Now, is Yelich going to be as good as he was down the stretch last year? Hell no, he's not. Why? Because you cannot keep that level up. He's not going to be. He's going to take a step back. Is he going to be the guy down the second half or the first half? The odds are probably somewhere in the middle. He's a guy who could hit 30 home runs, bat 300, steal 20 bases. He's just not going to play as effectively as he was down the stretch last year. That was one of the best runs we've ever seen somebody play the game of baseball. He ain't going to be that good. He's just not. Nobody's going to be that good. But he is, as we know, the reigning MVP and a really good hitter. Next up, you got Ryan Braun, who, while the numbers don't look great last year, he hit into a bunch of bad luck, and he still gets hit at the right time. Now, if you want to push him down to bat fifth or sixth, good with that. This is just for argument's sake. We can move him down. I'm totally okay with that. And we know Counsell will probably mess around with the lineup on a daily basis anyways. Then you get into Mike Moustakas, who we only saw him in a limited fashion last year, first time over to the NL, getting to know the pitchers. Mike Moustakas can play the game. I'm glad we're having him back. This guy can hit. He's probably going to pop 30 home runs this year, bat 260, 270, something like that. Followed up by Jesus Aguilar, however this order goes. Aguilar is another guy. I think most people think he's a flash in the pan. Have you watched this guy's at bats the last couple of years? This guy can hit. He is a great two-strike hitter. Awesome opposite field power, and he's not just a power hitter. He is a good hitter. I was screaming for this guy to be an everyday player for well over a year before they finally gave him the opportunity, and he produced with it. This guy was the first half MVP of the National League last year. Yeah, he took a little step back in the second half, but he was pacing towards being like a 45 home run guy. Yeah, it's okay. Not everybody's going to play like that all the time. This guy can play. If you're still overlooking him, that's on you, not on us. Next up, Travis Shaw. Back-to-back 30 home run seasons. Again, Travis Shaw was the focal point of the offense 2 years ago. Now he's like the fifth or sixth best hitter on the team. Yes, Travis Shaw is a 30-plus home run guy, and while the batting average wasn't great last year, he still had an on-base percentage that was gigantic. Love me some Travis Shaw. We add in Yasmani Grandal. We've upgraded the hitting from the catching position. And Orlando Arcia can only be better than he was for 3/4 of the year last year. He was good down the stretch. He was good in the playoffs, but he was pathetic. And I'm a huge Orlando Arcia fan. But the way he played offense in the first half of the season last year was an absolute joke. And he's better than that. He's a young player. Young players are wildly inconsistent. I expect him to be more consistent this year. He's a slow starter, so I wouldn't be surprised if he gets off to another slow start and people are calling for Perez to take more games at short. But Orlando Arcia is a highly regarded prospect. He is one of the best defensive shortstops out there. He had some big hits last year. Let's give this kid some time and get him going. All right, next up, and last thing we'll talk about is going to be the pitching staff. So let's admit it. Last year, they overachieved. Based on what you would expect out of guys like Chacin, etc., yeah, they overachieved. They were better than you would have expected. But we've already tapped into one of the main reasons is because they can really leave it all out there for 5 innings, knowing what the Brewers bullpen can do. So there are reasons to think the Brewers pitching staff will be better this year. Let's not forget that last year they were missing their top 2 starters for almost the entire year. Jimmy Nelson didn't throw one pitch. Nelson was 9th in the Cy Young voting the year before that. Now, is he going to come back and be dominant right away? Probably not. But if we can get him back to the way he was by playoff time, and you can get a starter who can go out there and be dominant for 6 or 7 innings, Nelson's got elite level stuff. He has never been an elite level pitcher. His last year where he finished 9th, he was starting to border on that, but he has elite level stuff, great fastball. If we can get Jimmy Nelson back, and it's not saying it's impossible for him to come back and pitch really well right away, but I'm going to give the guy not 6 months, 3-4 months to really get it going, I guess is a better way to look at it. Chacin was great last year. Now, is he a top-end starter? No, but he's a top, solid middle of the rotation to bottom rotation type of a guy. Wily veteran who can bring some savvy. It's still a possibility we might bring Gio back. And a couple other guys, like Zach Davies was our second or third best starter going into last year. He barely pitched. And when he did pitch, he wasn't great. Why? Because he was hurt all year. Corbin Burns has got the stuff to be an upper-tier type of pitcher. And we saw him be dominant last year. Now, is he going to be a starter this year? Probably. Can he bring that out there for 6 innings? Probably. Now, that's not a lock. It's not a sure thing. It's not Max Scherzer, but he has elite level stuff. Highly regarded. He was very good last year. If Burns does anything like that as a starter and we get Nelson back and we start shoving guys like Davies and Chacin down to 4th and 5th in the rotation, this is a pretty decent above average rotation. No, it's not going to be the Washington Nationals with sexy names like Strasburg and Scherzer, but there's a lot to like about the Milwaukee Brewers staff. It's not the top staff in the league. It's not as top 2 or top 3 or anything like that, but it is solid top to bottom, assuming these things work out. Now, still possible we can make some trades at the deadline. If that comes around, Brandon Woodruff can be your long guy, or he can also be a starter. He's got some quality stuff. Plus, he likes to take Clayton Kershaw yard. So there is a lot to like about this Brewers team. So while they're getting slept on by the national media as a one-year Cinderella story, they have every reason to think they can go out and repeat. It is far from a lock, because I'll repeat this. The Cardinals and the Cubs can play. This is a very strong division. It's anybody's game. Highly likely we have at least 2, if not 3 playoff teams coming out of this division this year. The West is pretty competitive with Dodgers and Colorado as well. We'll see what happens in the East, but it's a good division, so we can't guarantee anything. But I do think the people that simply look at this team as a flash in the pan, probably those guys that don't really watch baseball. You know what I mean? Like they watch their own team a little bit. That's about it. So Milwaukee's got a good, solid team, and we can't forget to discuss the team chemistry that goes into this as well. This team likes to play together. It's a good time to be a Milwaukee sports fan right now, and we haven't had a lot of that, right? I'm 38 years old. Being a Packer fan has been pretty easy for most of my life, but trying to root for the Brewers and the Bucks hasn't been easy at all. This is a good time to be a Brewer fan. This team's got a lot to play for. I think they're going to be motivated this season coming in off that loss. They haven't lost anybody. Who'd they lose? Scope? So what? I like Jonathan Scope, but he played like garbage the entire time in Milwaukee. Never really caught on. If we had re-signed him, I wouldn't have minded that because I really think he would have turned it around and played better for us, but he wasn't. We didn't miss anything by him. He did nothing for Milwaukee last year. We got everybody back, and we can be adding, a full season of Corbin Burns, Jimmy Nelson coming back. Zach Davies could be healthy. We added Yasmani Grandal. I like Manny Pena, but Grandal's an upgrade right there. So we should only be better. Chemistry's still there. No reason to think that's changed. That's it, guys. Can't wait for baseball season to start. If you'd like to come on the show, reach out to me. We can talk about Brewers, Bucks, Packers, just looking to be more people incorporated into this. I can talk for a long time, but even I would like to have a partner from time to time when we do these longer shows discussing things like this. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good day. Hit that red button that says subscribe. Thumbs up. Really appreciate it. Talk to y'all soon.